And welcome to another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. I'm Taylor Phillips, flying solo. Ed Smith is on assignment for the next 2 weeks. So we're going to talk a lot about Lions and a lot about Tigers right now. So let's get to it. First off, our top story: Lions defensive back C.J. Gardner-Johnson was hurt. He hurt his knee and was carted off the field, but the MRI showed zero structural damage, so he's only listed day to day. So I'm telling Lions fans, please do not panic. C.J. Gardner-Johnson is only day to day. There was nothing serious according to the MRI. Dan Campbell's relieved. The Lions players and coaches involved are relieved, and so should the fan base. So I've been reading people on Twitter and on Facebook overreacting. They were not conscious of his actual exact status update on his knee. But they got they. All I'm saying is they have to wait for his official status before before they start panicking or start reacting in some way. Thankfully, it wasn't anything serious, so we're good there. Also, another injury report that's not to panic about: Marvin Jones Jr., Emmanuel Mosley, and Hendon Hooker are all recovering from their injuries that they suffered months ago. Again, please do not panic. Also, the Lions have acquired wide receiver Denzel Mims and a 2025 seventh-round pick in a trade from the New York Jets for a 2025 conditional sixth-round draft pick. Denzel Mims has played 30 games in his career, 3 seasons, 42 catches out of 92 targets for a whopping 676 receiving yards, yet 0 touchdowns whatsoever. So all I can say is right now, Mims still has yet to score his first career receiving touchdown in his NFL career. He's going into year 4 of his NFL career, entering Detroit with the Lions. So they might use him as a backup wide receiver behind Marvin Jones Jr., Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Josh Reynolds, and others in the rotation. So I'm going to wait and see how Denzel Mims does before I even start grading him. So we're not going to do the What's Your Grade segment on Denzel Mims yet. Also, what is shocking to me is the Lions releasing place kicker Michael Badgley, who nailed 20 out of 24 field goal attempts. Just a couple of them were kind of critical, including the one in Minnesota last year. It was a part of their 1-6 start last year before they traded T.J. Hawkinson and fired defensive backs coach Aubrey Pleasant. Remember that? After that, they went on an 8-2 tear and beat the Packers in Green Bay 20-16 at Lambeau Field. And finally, the Lions also hosted quarterback Teddy Bridgewater, out of all people, for a tryout. Now, if Bridgewater somehow makes the team, I'd say somehow makes the team, I would say give him a third-string spot behind Hendon Hooker. And Jared Goff's the number 1 quarterback, regardless. I don't really care about that. It doesn't. This Teddy Bridgewater stuff doesn't even matter. If he still has a little bit left in the tank, does Bridgewater, give him a third-string job behind Goff and Hendon Hooker. That's Lions. Now, I know this is still the middle of winding down the near the end of July. Still got 2 months to go in the regular season of Major League Baseball 2023. But I want to go over each and every Tigers player. I want to sort everything out. who to get rid of, send back down, keep in the minors, and who is good enough to stay up in the major league level. For example, first off, let's get rid of the bad, okay? First off, Eric Haas, Mason Englert, Nick Maton, Matthew Boyd, and Casey Mize. Matthew Boyd, I don't know why I don't know why Tigers fans dub him as a fan favorite. Same for Eric Haas. They just like a lot of players that suck. That's what's wrong with this. That's what's wrong with this fan base. It just doesn't get it. I'm sorry. I don't care if you like them. There's a reason not to. And I'll prove why. Eric Haas, for example, a 203 average, a 531 OPS, and a negative 0.4 WAR, wins above replacement value. Terrible. Mason Englert, a 4-3 record, a 5.46 ERA, a 150 WHIP, walks, hits per innings pitched, and a negative 0.8 WAR. Ugh. Nick Maton, a 164 average, a 580 OPS. Let me dig up his WAR real fast. I forgot to write that down. Player value, batters, WAR. Nick freaking Maton, negative 1.3 WAR. Oh my God. Freaking terrible. Get him out of here. Matthew Boyd, 5-5 record, 5.45 ERA, 132 WHIP, negative 0.4 WAR, and he's on the 60-day injured list, and he's getting paid $10 million for 1 year. What the fuck is Scott Harris fucking thinking on that fucking signing? Really? And then Casey Mize, out for the entire season. I hate to say it, but he's a bust. 4.29 ERA in his career, 121 career WHIP. Those are tough to take, especially Mize. Oh, just the one. Just the one. Actually, not those. Just that one. Casey Mize, tough to take. But the other four, get them out of. Get them all out of here. I don't care. I don't care if they're fan favorites. They suck. They're terrible. Now, let me sip up my water here. Out of my Lions cup. I'm more of a Lions believer than a Tigers believer. I'm also a believer of the Red Wings, who stack talent, but I'm not going to talk about them this episode, unfortunately. But anyway, the players that here are two players that the Tigers could consider buying out of their contracts. Javier Baez, who may opt out after this season, according to SpotTrack.com and the SpotTrack mobile app. 13 errors thus far, on pace for 26 last year. On pace for 26 again this year, like he committed last year. 26 errors committed last year. Could he commit 26 again? Who knows? But 226 average, a 599 OPS. He's getting paid $140 million total in a span of 6 years. And then you got Spencer Turnbull, who, as we remember, throwing that no-hitter in Seattle like 2 years ago. But that means nothing. A 1-4 record this year, 7.26 ERA, a 168 WHIP, and a negative 0.7 WAR. So much for his no-hitter. And then the players the Tigers need to send back down to the minors. Brandon White is still in the major leagues. 2-2, 4.95 ERA, 130 WHIP, 0.0 WAR, and sorry to say, and then Bo Brisky, no record, 6.23 ERA, 138 WHIP. No, at 0.0 WAR. Send him down urgently. Send him back down urgently. And then you got a few players the Tigers need to keep in the minors on the according to the their 40-man roster. Tyler Alexander, 0.0 WAR, 2-1 record, 4.50 ERA, a 1.11 WHIP, but he's on the 60-day injured list. So Tyler Alexander could still be used as a reliever if the Tigers call him back up sometime in the near future again. Tyler Nevin, a 122 average, a 398 OPS. That is way rock bottom. A negative 0.8 WAR as a result. Reese Olson, a 0.2 WAR, a 1-4 record, a 4.53 ERA, and a 1.10 WHIP. Joey Wentz, yeah, beyond fucking terrible. Negative 1.2 WAR, a 1-9 record, 6.78 ERA, and a 1.63 WHIP. I can imagine that's even terrible than Tyler Alexander as a starting pitcher from last year, 2022. And then Nick Solak, no stats in the MLB level whatsoever because he did not even play any games in the major league level. Now, the Tigers players that are good enough to stay up in the major league level as product players, and these are really good ones. At least some of them are really good. But I'll start with Tarek Skubal, 0.0 WAR, 1-1 record, 3.71 ERA, a 0.88 WHIP. That's darn good. Jason Foley, who I saw throw a 100 mile an hour fastball. He's a flamethrower. Jason Foley, a positive 1.7 WAR, a 2-2 record, 2.03 ERA, and a 1.06 WHIP. Also damn good. Alex Lang, struggled a little bit, but still has good numbers. 0.6 WAR as a closing pitcher, 5-2 record, 3.98 ERA, and a 1.28 WHIP. He just has to pick it back up. Michael Lorenzen, a 1.9 WAR right now, 5.6 record, 3.49 ERA, a 1.09 WHIP. But he could be traded unless the team stands pat prior to the MLB non-waiver trade deadline. Same goes for Eduardo Rodriguez, who has a positive 2.4 WAR, a 6-5 record, a 2.69 ERA, and a 0.97 WHIP. Again, he could be traded unless the team stands pat prior to the non-waiver deadline. Matt Manning, 0.9 WAR above a positive 0.9 WAR, 3-1 record, 3.19 ERA, and a 1.01 WHIP. Good. Very good. Will Vest, who was on the 15-day injured list but has very good numbers, 0.6 WAR positive, 2-0 record, 2.73 ERA, and a 1.08 WHIP. Kerry Carpenter, 1.3 WAR, 271 average and an 830 OPS. That's red hot, man. Riley Green, 2.1 WAR, 309 average, 837 OPS. Why the fuck was he not an all-star, man? He should have joined Michael Lorenzen. For God's sake. Andy Ibanez, 0.9 WAR, 237 average, 687 OPS rather. Yes, 687 OPS. Andy Ibanez also making really good defensive plays, making diving stops on tough ground balls that were projected to be singles, but turned into outs. Zach McKinstry, 1.2 WAR, 242 average, 689 OPS, close to 700. So those hitters that are whose OPSs are close to but still below 700, they could have a chance to work themselves up, work their ways up, and get their numbers up even higher for starting next year. Jake Rogers, 0.4 WAR positive, 209 average, 634 OPS. Spencer Torkelson still has yet to work his way up, 0.2 WAR positive, 233 average, 723 OPS. That's still better than the 233 average, batting average. And finally, Akil Baddoo, positive 0.4 WAR, 209 average, 634 OPS. I'll give him time to work his way up. Before I get to the players up in the air, I want to touch on Javier Baez. Javier Baez right now has a 0.6 WAR. His defensive WAR, despite committing 13 errors thus far through July 24th, his defensive WAR is a positive 0.7. So he's been turning a lot of double plays successfully. I guess he's been working on, working more on his throws to first. I saw that his issue on his throws to first where he's been putting too much spin on his throws to first, like a curveball or a sinker or a split finger. It should be a straight fastball, four-seam fastball. It's not supposed to have fancy movement. You're a shortstop, not a pitcher. So I believe Javier Baez has at least somewhat worked on that. He just needs to keep working on it. Now, the Tigers players that I think are up in the air. Whatever the hell happened to Zach Short? He was red hot the first 2 or 3 months, and now he's on a decline. 0.6 WAR, 204 average, 619 OPS. I'll give him more time to work his way up, but if he doesn't, then I'll have to send him back down. Chasen Shreve, positive 0.2 WAR, 1-2 record, 4.46 ERA, 132 WHIP in relief. He is not a setup guy. Jason Foley is their setup guy, as compared to Joel Zumaya, who used to throw over 100 miles an hour like over a decade ago. Jose Cisnero, also a flamethrower, but also up in the air, positive 0.3 record, gave up a home run earlier today, a solo home run, but that was it. Appeared to be the only run the Tigers gave up in a 5-1 win over the San Francisco Giants in that makeup game earlier today. Cisnero, positive 0.3 WAR, as I mentioned, 2-2 record, 3.96 ERA, a 1.29 WHIP. He's getting paid $2.2875 million in 1 year in his contract. And finally, Austin Meadows, and we understand his mental health issues, but at the same time, his numbers aren't that good either. A negative 0.1 WAR, a 238 batting average, and a 524 OPS in 21 games. He's getting paid $4.3 million this year, and he doesn't become an unrestricted free agent until 2025. So the Tigers, I believe, are stuck with Austin Meadows until he becomes an unrestricted free agent. But I have to believe he becomes a restricted free agent after this year, but unrestricted free agent in in 2024. He becomes an unrestricted free agent in 2025, like I mentioned before. So, Austin Meadows really, I hope he's doing okay on a personal note, above all those terrible stats, all those bad stats. 238 batting average isn't that terrible, but his 524 OPS is terrible, even in just 21 games. So what did you people learn? I think the Lions fans should not panic. I think the Lions players that are injured or hurt are already recovering. And CJ Gardner-Johnson, like I mentioned before, he will be fine. Again, he's only day-to-day with his knee. Nothing serious according to the MRI. So everything is good with the Lions, okay? Stop panicking, for God's sake. Just take a deep breath. And everything will be good. USA Today projects the Lions will go 11-6, finish 11-6, and win the NFC North. The rest of the NFC teams, Packers, Bears, and Vikings, will all each finish 7-10. Yeah, you heard that right. Packers, Bears, and Vikings are all projected by USA Today to finish 7-10 and not even make the freaking playoffs. The Lions projected 11-6. Again, I said earlier, my ceiling for the Lions was 12-5 in the NFC North Championship and at least one playoff win. First one since the 91-92 NFL season. But not quite an NFC Championship ring or a Super Bowl ring. Let's not get our hopes up way too high. But let's not panic about the injuries. Again, like I said, the Lions will be fine. And for the Tigers, they still have a few more years of progress to be made. They just have to cut off some more dead weight, such as Eric Haas, Mason Englert, Nick Maton, Matthew Boyd, and Casey Mize. They all need to go. Casey Mize, the most heartbreaking aspect of that was he was the number one overall pick in 2018 in the MLB draft, as we can all recall. So that was the only I hate to say it player, but you have to go. But the other four, I want gone personally and wholeheartedly. Haas, Englert, Maton, and Boyd. Matthew Boyd should never have come back in the first place. He should have stayed his ass in Seattle, where he was doing a lot better as a relief pitcher and not a starter. So that's all we've learned for this episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Follow the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Michigan_Truth, and like its Facebook page. Subscribe to its YouTube channel at the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Like our videos and turn on all notifications on the bell icon. Also, listen in audio form on Spreaker, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. I'm Taylor Phillips. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram at DT2Phillips. Subscribe to my YouTube channel at DT2Phillips. Also follow me on Twitch, DT2Phillips1984. Special business shout outs go to Cali Tickets. Call Mark Goldman at 877-225-8425 or visit CaliTickets.com. Creative Embroidery of Cadillac for designing the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast logo on my long sleeve shirt and t-shirt. Cuts by Melanie in Lake City. I'll have to get a haircut this Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. Let's Roll With It. Rolled ice cream in Cadillac, now branded with the Food Mafia. Follow them on TikTok at the Food Mafia LLC. Also like them on Facebook. Northern Star Event Rentals in Cadillac, 231-884-8195, and on Facebook as well. And finally, United Food Service Solutions of Grand Ledge, Michigan. So I'll be back next week, uh, or sometime with another episode if I could brainstorm a topic or two. So yeah, again, the Tigers' season is pretty much done, but they're still 6.5 games back at first place in third place in the AL Comedy Central. But I still think the Tigers are done. They're eighth worst in the majors, fourth worst in the American League. But until next week until the next episode, I'm Taylor Phillips, and remember, we observe Michigan sports, and we detect the truth. Stay aware, everybody. Stay on the lookout. Ta ta. Hit them with a high.